Gita's Way of Right Activity by Swami Smaranananda. Our first point is Gita's unique contribution. The Bhagavad Gita, one of the greatest scriptures of the world, or rather the greatest, if one may say, has its eternal message given from various angles. Among them, the concept of Karma Yoga as its original contribution. For the first time in the history of world literature, this idea of Karma Yoga occurs in the Gita, even though it finds a mention in the Upanishads in a rudimentary form. For example, we may quote here the second verse of the Isavasya Upanishad. By doing karma, indeed, one should wish to live here for 100 years. For a man such as you, there is no other way than this, whereby karma may not cling to you. It is also interesting to note that this message of the Gita was delivered in a battlefield where two large armies had been arrayed against each other in the battleground of Kurukshetra. Indeed, the battlefield is the place to test one's ability to do one's duty, in spite of being provoked to do otherwise. Though the Gita is a Samanvaya Grantha, a book of harmonizing all the four yogas such as Jnana, Karma, Bhakti, and Raja Yoga. Its special contribution is the concept of Karma Yoga. During the medieval period in India, there was a general belief that karma, action of all kinds, is an obstacle to spiritual progress. The Mimamsakas, however, taking their stand on the ritualistic section of the Vedas, believed that non-performance of the Vedic rituals will result in one not reaching the goal of life, the heaven. This was illustrated through such statements or directives as Yavat Jivam Agnihatram Juhuyat. Perform Agnihatra, that is the customary fire ritual performed by a householder, as long as you are alive. But the question was raised, can work be done without the bondage it brings? This was answered by Sri Krishna, who emphatically said in the Gita that it is possible to do so. He said the art of right activity, that is yoga, lies in doing one's duty skillfully. Yoga karmasu kausalam. In other words, one should learn how to work without being shackled by the bonds of karma. Sri Krishna denounces people who set heaven as their goal of life and perform Vedic rituals for that purpose only. He says those people who have fixed heavenly enjoyments as their goal in life can never attain Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi, an intellect determined on breaking of all bonds. For the Vedas, to come within the sphere of the three gunas, you go beyond them. He did not preach inaction, referring to the necessity of doing work. Sri Krishna said, verily, none can ever rest for even an instant without performing action. For all are made to act helplessly by the gunas, that is, constituent qualities of the material world, born of Prakriti. So, how should we work without getting entangled in it? Sri Krishna answers is, Yogastha Kuru Karmani. By remaining rooted in yoga, doing one's work. How does one do that? By not getting attached to the fruits of one's action. This, then, is the secret of Karma Yoga, work without being attached, looking upon success and failure with equanimity. This is called yoga, and this is the state of perfection in Karma Yoga. Sri Krishna calls this method of doing work as Buddhi Yoga because non-attachment to results is an attitude of the Buddhi or our discriminative faculty. Without this attitude, one cannot become detached to the results of one's actions. Our next point is activity without attachment. Though popularly the word yajna brings to mind a fire ritual, Sri Krishna gave a deeper meaning to it when he said, work done for purposes other than yajna results in bondage. Therefore, O Kaunteya, work, freeing yourself from all attachment. Here yajna means making a sacrifice in order to maintain the universal order of give and take, which forms the basis of all life. It is this participation in the cyclic nature of life which brings true happiness in life. This means that we will have to convert all our actions into yajna, that is, transform all our activities into sacrifice. By eschewing all selfishness or tendency to hoard and possess, in order to renounce selfishness, one should make one's life God-oriented. Only when our mind is directed towards higher ideals that it becomes possible for us to get rid of selfishness. We often ask, why are people selfish? To it, the simple answer is because of desires and a wrong understanding that if desires are fulfilled, one can be happy forever. The fact, however, is otherwise. It is not fulfilling our selfish desires, but non-attachment to results of actions, which really brings true joy in life. We suffer because we become attached to results and run after money, pleasures, fame, and other fleeting objects of life. Suffering comes from following the path of sakama karma, that is, work with a selfish motive. One should remain active all the time, but without attachment. Sri Krishna himself sets this example of constant activity and shows us how to remain free from attachment. He tells Arjuna, O Partha, I have no duty to be performed in all the three worlds. I have nothing to be attained. Still I go on working. The actions or work do not bind me, nor have I any desire for the results of actions. If one understands this in this manner, actions will not bind him. Lest people misconstrue this statement to mean that one can then be inactive or lazy, Sri Krishna warns, if I were not working without sleep, ordinary people will also follow suit. That would set in motion degeneration of higher values of life. Next point is the practice of Karma Yoga. Generally speaking, the practice of Karma Yoga is quite difficult. In order to be truly successful in this practice of Karma Yoga, one needs the support of Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. For Karma Yoga involves giving up attachment, which of course requires cultivating right attitude towards the action itself. And this is what Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga help one to do. The practice of Jnana Yoga requires exercising our power of discrimination between the real and the unreal, between the ephemeral and the permanent, between the absolute and the relative, or what Sri Ramakrishna called as Nitya and Anitya. Attachment is a mental quality, and we have nurtured it through many births. To get rid of it, one needs to continuously struggle and practice Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. that is, hearing about the spiritual ideal, deep thinking about it, and meditation on the truth of it. Similarly, we should practice Bhakti Yoga or the yoga of love for God and connect all our actions to God. We will have to dedicate the fruits of all our actions at the feet of the Lord. This is possible only when we develop love for God, not merely doing ritualistic worship, but truly developing intense love for God. Renunciation is a mental act, and it has to have discrimination and detachment at the background. As the Gita says, the knower of truth thinks that he does nothing, though he may be performing all kinds of actions. He knows that the sense organs are working upon sense objects. He deposits all the results of actions in Brahman and frees himself from all attachments and lives like the lotus sleep on water. In order to renounce attachment to something lower, attachment to something higher is necessary. This attachment to something higher is the attachment to God. If we can love God with all our heart and all our soul, we can then renounce attachment to all things worldly. Then we will be able to do all our actions as a duty without getting attached to their results. We will then be able to offer the results of all such actions at the feet of God. As goes the well-known Sanskrit saying, Yat yat karma karami, tat tat akhilam sambha tabardhanam. Whatever karma I am doing, O Sambhu, I dedicate all these at your feet. Therefore, the secret of Karma Yoga is to develop the right kind of attitude with which one can do one's duties skillfully. This demands freeing oneself from all wrong identifications and remaining detached in the midst of all actions. This is actually an inner process and begins at the mental level, the level of the buddhi. Action itself is not at fault. It is our attitude towards it which makes the difference. It again depends upon our identification with what is being done by the senses, which are themselves the transformation of the three gunas. But the jnani or the knower of Brahman knows that all actions are only the three gunas acting upon the three gunas in various ways. Being established in the knowledge, thus, he no more identifies himself with them. Our last point is conclusion. So, what the Gita ultimately teaches is that we should develop the right attitude toward all actions, and this is possible if we make jnana or bhakti as the basis of all our actions. Above all, as Swami Vivekananda said, duty is seldom sweet. It is only when love greases its wheels that it runs smoothly. It is a continuous friction otherwise. Leo Tolstoy, the great Russian literature, concluded one of his short stories entitled What Men Live By with the saying, I have now understood that though it seems to men that they live by care for themselves, in truth it is love alone by which they live. He who has love is in God, and God is in him, for God is love. In other words, only when the leavening of love is added to our actions that it becomes pleasant. Therefore, only when activity is channeled through love that it becomes right activity. This is possible only if love forms the basis of karma. Sri Krishna uses the phrase Sarvabhuta Hiterataha, that is, one who is constantly interested in the welfare of all beings. Indeed, if this love for others forms the basis of our actions, then only can we be interested in the welfare of all. And the secret of activity lies in nurturing this power of love, which acts as the transforming power behind all our actions. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.